in the blank. You're not
Ooh.
getting any younger, so
get naked and swim in the ocean and be free.
Hey you! Yes, you! Welcome to the You're Not Getting Any Younger podcast, a podcast for people who want to disrupt their lives for a good reason, to make it count. I'm your host, Jen Glantz, and every week I'll drop a new episode with stories from real people just like you, who woke up one morning and decided to make big changes, starting with small things. We'll cover topics like entrepreneurship, love, failure, and self-care. Hey, you're not getting any younger, so let's make this an adventure. Ready? The very first time I realized I had pimples, lots and lots of pimples on my face, was during the time that most people didn't even know what they were. It was in 5th grade, and people would stare at me as I picked them or put ice cubes on them to just make them go away. I didn't know what caused pimples or why they were there, so back then I just believed they were tiny extensions of my face, and I was okay with that. But then people made fun of me, and I made fun of me, and I asked my mom for makeup, and I put it on like one would ice a cake, swirling the brush around with this magic cover-up on my face over and over and over again until these red anthill-like things became sandy mountains on my face. I've always had pimples. I just hoped you wouldn't notice, but I know you did. I know you called me names and talked about me and said things like, Jen, if you just stopped eating so much pizza, your pimples would go away. And I listened, secretly, but they didn't. They got worse. I tried every cream, every magic potion marketed to me, and left every dermatologist's office screaming and crying because their only solution was to try this pill or that pill, and I didn't want to do that. After doing a segment on live TV, I logged onto Facebook and read a message from a complete stranger that said, "Oh, please, Jen, wear more makeup. Nobody wants to see your pimply skin." That hurt. I've never publicly talked about my bad skin, and that's why this episode today means a whole lot to me. Meet Cassandra Bankson, a popular YouTuber who went viral years ago for taking off her makeup and showing off her skin. Her skin that was covered at 80% with acne. Since then, she's vlogged about different skincare treatments that have helped her cure her acne. In this episode, we get real fast. Cassandra opens up about being bullied so bad in school that listening to her story made me cry. She talks about her skin, her YouTube career, and coming out, which is something she recently did. Get ready, my friends, because this week's episode is filled with greatness. I really hope you enjoy. One of the main topics I want to talk to you about is something that I've personally struggled with since the 5th grade, acne. Can you remember the first time you realized that you had acne?
Yes. It was actually in the 3rd grade. I had this pimple on the side of my nose, and a classmate named Carolyn looked at me and she's like, "What is that? Is that a wart? Is it contagious?" And I was like, "I don't know." So I ran home to my mom and she was like, "Oh, honey, it's just a pimple. Don't worry, it'll go away." Little did she know that eventually acne would end up taking over 80 to 90% of my face, chest, and back.
Wow, so I'm guessing in the 3rd grade you were probably one of the only people to have this happen to you. So what was going through your mind when you started to realize there is acne growing and popping up all over your body?
When I was in the 3rd grade and in really young grade school, people didn't know what it was. Neither did I. So people didn't judge me. People were just curious. But then as I entered middle school, I was under more stress. I actually had my first relationship, which, was with a girl that I obviously felt that I had to keep inside. So that added to the stress. And on top of that, with all these new kids, some of them knew what acne was, and they blamed me for not being hygienic or for being dirty or for being a disease. And that's when it got really hard. I think that that's when I actually became hyper aware of my acne.
You know, that's so crazy because I've also had acne since I was very, very, very young. And it's so crazy that people look at acne and think that there's something wrong with you or that you're dirty. I mean, I had people say to me, you know what, if you stopped eating all this greasy food, your acne would go away. And of course, you know that there's more than just that. But what was your defense like to these people who would say mean things to you?
Oh gosh, my defense was honestly to run away from my problems, both figuratively and literally. I guess you could say that was an overarching issue in my life. But whenever people would say things, I would just kind of get quiet. I would hide. I ended up really growing out my hair and using it to cover my eyes. I would wear hoodies and sweatshirts and these large jackets that I felt I needed to protect myself. And it kind of became a trend where I would be quiet, I would be a recluse, I would cut myself off from human interaction as a way to protect myself or to put up a shield, but especially once I got into high school and in the long run, that ended up being like a wall that kept me prisoner to myself and to my own negative thoughts rather than being a shield that protected me.
For sure. And I'm sure having it, before most people had it and having it as bad as you did, you must have just felt like this was just such a weird thing to have happen to you. And you probably took on the embarrassment times 10 too. So
yeah.
In addition to having that happen, acne is painful. Like I remember when I was in middle school and I had these giant cysts on my face and they hurt like hell. What did you do back then to deal with some of the pain or just the pimples all over you?
The pain was horrible, and I can totally relate to not being able to sleep on one side of your face. Like, I wish that you could see some of the photos. I mean, I'm sure you could Google them on the internet of what my skin used to look like. But when you have acne that covers that much of your skin, you can't even lay down comfortably. And I had been seeing dermatologists. My girlfriend, who is my best friend, who, of course, nobody knew about this relationship, she had been seeing a dermatologist. So I started seeing that person. And I saw doctor after doctor after doctor who would prescribe me pills telling me that this would make things better. And some things made a small dent, but nothing worked. And then other things made my stomach feel sick. I once threw up blueberries all over my grandma's car because this medication would make me sick daily. And, it was horrible to have to live like that because you kind of feel like, whack-a-mole, that game that you play in an arcade. I felt like these doctors and these other kids who were commenting about my skin and even my own self-perception, it was just bam, whack-a-mole over the head to your self-esteem time and time again.
Yeah.
And by the time I left high school and started studying medicine, studying dermatology, studying my own skin to try to come up with my own answers, I had seen 24 doctors, all who told me, try this pill, try this medication. Here's a medication for bladder infections. But you know what? Take it. We'll see if it works for you. And I'm like, oh my God.
Yeah, no, this sounds familiar. I have to tell you, I've had acne for so long, but I used to hate going to dermatologists, even a gynecologist, because they would look at my skin and say, birth control, Accutane. And I'm a very natural person. I won't even take Advil for a headache. And I remember just losing my shit one time on a doctor because he was like, you're, this is when I was younger. He's like, you're at 26. Like, you shouldn't be having acne like this. Here's a prescription for this, this, and this. And I was like, why is everyone pushing medication for your skin, right? Like,
yes.
It's crazy, but you were sort of smart enough to say, I'm going to take this into my own hands. So what did you do after you went to doctor after doctor and just realized this isn't the way it's going to work?
Well, I think that you're right. It was sheer frustration that I felt like doctors didn't listen to me, and they would sit me down in their office and they would be like, oh, we see acne patients a lot. And yeah, yours is really bad. Go on Accutane. But we see patients a lot. But at the same time, I never saw those patients. I felt like I was the only one.
Yep.
And you see celebrities on TV and you see, other girls at school and you're like, how come everyone is perfect except for me? And yeah, my studying really came out of frustration. Also because I really self-isolated, especially after I went through my first breakup. this whole relationship was a secret. And so there really was nobody that I spoke to about that. And of course, first love, there's always going to be a space for that person in your heart. And that hit me really, really hard. And that just made me even more reclusive. I cut myself off from my friends, especially going into high school. I did not have friends. I would not allow myself to be social because of what kids would say to me, but also because I played this back in my mind. And the one positive thing from being that antisocial and from being that isolated was that I did learn how to research things on my own. I did learn, how to use Google. I did learn how to look into the index of a medical dictionary and start figuring out some of these terms. And I've always been kind of a nerd. I was bullied for that as well. But I was the girl who would literally read books on a Friday night instead of go to the movies with friends. And I started researching acne because I was so frustrated. And I told myself, there has to be more than this.
Oh, yeah. And your journey really proves that that's so. But when you were younger, I'm just so curious, when you had it so bad, what inside of you said, I won't go on Accutane, I won't go on birth control? Because some people who have it so bad, in your position, they might have said, I'll do anything to just try to clear this up. But what stopped you from taking these, poisonous medications that could have made everything worse,
Yes. And don't get me wrong. I did take some of the antibiotics. I was on a lot of prescriptions, but they would make me sicker, not healthier, which was really frustrating. And then when I was given the opportunity to take Accutane, I actually was not a candidate. I was born with one kidney, and Accutane is a very serious medication. I personally, from a, non-physician standpoint, I think it's overprescribed and I think it can cause a lot of harm. There are special cases that maybe someone can benefit from it, but it's an intense medication.
Oh, yeah. Don't they make you do a blood test before you even go on it?
Yes. Well, you have to be on 2 forms of birth control or some sort of similar birth control because of the implications it can have on an unborn fetus or on future pregnancies. It's you have to take blood tests regularly. You have to check in monthly. And also my parents, the house that I grew up in was very, very religious. Hence, I could not come out or tell anybody about my girlfriend. But birth control was not an option. That was you might as well go shoot your brother and commit murder. Birth control is not an option.
Yeah.
And in order to take Accutane, I would have had to go on birth control. And also, at that time that those were offered to me by a doctor and then declined by my parents, I had one kidney. I couldn't medically take this. And then I was also questioning, if every single other antibiotic made me sick, if these other medications made my skin burn and caused these large gooing patches on my face, if these other things happened, why am I going to continue trusting a medicine system that seems to hurt me more than it helps? And that's why I didn't, go that route.
Amen to that. So what did you ultimately do? You were dealing with being bullied, you were dealing with this acne, you started studying it yourself. So what ultimately did you do to help yourself not just fix your skin, but to also just sort of understand what was going on?
For me, whenever anybody asks me how I've cleared my skin, which to this point I have, my answer is education. People always expect me to say a product or a certain thing. I believe that what cured my acne is education. And for me, that was a specialized kind of formula of a combination of the right skincare, but really the right diet and stress management. And when I was going through acne, I had the amazing opportunity to share that online. Because I was so depressed, I was suicidal. I was self-harming. I said a lot of negative things to myself. And the kids that would tease me at school, their words would play back in my head. I was called pizza face. I was called pus girl. I was called freak of nature. I was called the exorcist.
These names are creative. Whoa.
Oh, it was bad. But what hurt me that I didn't realize until years later is that I let them say those things to me. And then I amplified those in my head. And I walked home, half a mile from school every day, playing those things back in my mind and allowing that to become my identity, which was so damaging. And when I had time, when I was recluse, I ended up switching schools. I spoke to the counselor. A kid had thrown pizza at me. And I hate to say I was bullied because I was never tied to a flagpole or thrown in a dumpster. But looking back, I was emotionally and physically taunted because of my acne. And I am a victim of bullying. And it's taken me a lot to come to terms and accept that. But I had spoken to a counselor, and she essentially told me like, oh, well, you know, there's two sides to every story and the truth is somewhere in the middle. I know what you're going through is hard, but we could expel half the school or you could leave.
Wow.
And yeah, so I ended up doing a private study where I went to school, but it was with a limited class size. It was only with a teacher for a number of hours per week. And I did a lot of at-home study. And as negative as that was, it allowed me to excel because I had no friends. Like all I did was study and pet my cats. And I ended up graduating high school 2 years early and started pursuing aesthetics. And what was great about aesthetic school is that that's what really opened to my eyes to like, hey, there's other forms of healing. There's Chinese medicine, there's massage therapy. Whoa, maybe my stress levels have something to do with my skin. And being a chronic stress person, especially having to hide my self-harm, having to hide my sexuality, like dancing around pronouns and wearing long sleeve shirts and not loving who you are, that takes a toll on you.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And yeah, I started to realize like, you know, this body is connected. When I eat food or drink water, that's how I grow my hair. That's how I grow nails and become stronger and healthier. Maybe this has something to do with my skin as well. Maybe my stress has something. And that's when I really started just exploring these other things. I started talking to doctors, seeking out other people who had had acne in aesthetic school, started looking at blogs online, started reading medical textbooks about hormones. And if birth control can help people with their acne, maybe that means there's hormones. You know, all these doctors prescribe medications and pills and topical treatments to treat the acne. But what's actually causing it? Is it oil? Is it inflammation? Is it bacteria? Is it my pillowcase? Like, what is it? And I wasn't confident with the answers that I had been given, so I started to seek them out for myself.
And thank goodness you did, because, you know, you are very well known in the world because of your YouTube channel, where not only have you taken people through your journey with acne, but through your life for a lot of years. And just like you said, there's not one magic thing you can say right now that cures people's acne. You have series and series of videos on it, which are so incredibly helpful. And in 2010, you started your YouTube channel. What was your intention getting behind the camera and putting this channel up?
Yeah, that's a loaded question.
Yeah.
So after I had started studying aesthetics, I learned to do makeup. And I learned to do it well.
Yeah.
To the point that I was able to cover my acne and people couldn't tell that it was there. I could take photographs and people couldn't see it because I was using artistic techniques like light and shadow to cover it up. And as a couple of different years progressed, you know, obviously I was just hiding behind this mask, but I was able to book work as a model. And for the first time, like I felt beautiful. Even if I couldn't say, oh, Cassandra is beautiful, I could say Cassandra collaborated with a designer and a photographer, and we made a final image that is gorgeous. And even though I couldn't say that I am beautiful, I could say that image is beautiful and I was a part of that. And that was the first step to me to learning to love myself. And I know that sounds twisted and like horrendous, but that is literally how low my self-esteem was, that I couldn't even give myself that credit. But as I started modeling more and more, I, started booking runway gigs and I started getting paid to be pretty. But inside, I was still being eaten up alive because I was the suicidal kid who was bullied and had to switch schools. And now I'm being paid to be pretty, in quotes. Those two identities didn't fit in the same body. And every single day I was like, oh my God, like both of these people are me, but I feel like I'm living a lie. And I learned so much of my makeup tips from YouTube way back in the way back when, before YouTube was even a thing. And I thought to myself, if I know how to cover my acne like this, and this is what saved my life literally from, my own destructive behaviors, if the doctors are right, if there really is somebody else who is suffering with this, I need to share what has gotten me through every single day. And again, this was when like nobody watched YouTube. So I thought, okay, I'll just put this out there. And then maybe if someone's searching for this specific term, I can help them. You know, I was already creating some of these little YouTube videos to try to give back to the community. And I was like, I'll just put this little one out there. And it was emotional. I actually had to film it twice, but I just put it out there, and then I didn't look at the internet for almost half a year.
Wow. So there's a lot to say here, because you have an incredibly powerful, yet I think extremely relatable story, in the sense that you can be two entirely different people at once and nobody knows, right? So on the outside, people can see your modeling photos and be like, Cassandra, you're beautiful. The world loves you. You must love yourself. But on the inside, you're completely falling apart, and that takes a giant toll on you. But I think my question really is that I know a lot of people struggle with not loving themselves for many different reasons. What were the steps you took to have the confidence to even say to yourself, I'm going to get behind a camera, whether it's for a photography or whether it's for a video? Like, what gave you that courage after so many people said such nasty things about you?
And I mean, like I said, I was hiding behind my hair. I was hiding behind sweaters. If you look back at my yearbook photos, like half of my face is covered in hair because I couldn't be seen. So it was a long journey, but I think it all boils back to that frustration. I've always kind of had like this rebellious streak. And when the doctors told me you had to take this pill, I would be like, fudge, no.
Yeah.
You know, when they told me that you had to do this, I would say no, and I would rebel. You know, when people told me that this is what medicine I had to take, I decided to research things myself. And I got to that point where I was so frustrated and I knew what it felt like to be hurt. I just decided I have to share this with other people. For me, it was like getting a weight off my chest. Again, as a model, I felt like a hypocrite. Like I was living a double life, and I just had to let that go. And to even get in front of that camera in the first place, I had taken photos on accident. It was part of a school photography project. And when I got those images back, when I actually saw what the photographer had made, I was just like, oh my God, this is the first time in 5 years I've been able to say that something about me looks pretty. Like I looked at my eyes, not at my skin. And that little touch of confidence and self-pride was enough to propel me to learn to do my makeup better and to really step into that modeling world. You know, but then that, you know, that spewed all sorts of new insecurities. So for instance, I didn't look at the internet for 6 months. I was so afraid of what people would say. One of the hardest things that anyone had ever told me, there was a kid, I won't say his name, but it started with a K. And, you know, he said, my grandfather at the time was dying. And he said, it's a great thing that your grandfather is dying because you won't have to look at your face anymore. And yeah, you know, and I love my grandpa. That's something that that's something that really sits with me still to this day. And like posting online, like you see people face to face. And if they had the audacity to tell me that in the middle of G Hall, I mean, I was like terrified of what people would say online behind, you know, an anonymous username. And so I just didn't look at the internet for so long. And it wasn't until 4 months later, I remembered, oh my God, I posted that crap on the internet. What's going on? And I checked, and I remember logging on. My heart felt like it was going to choke me in my neck. I mean, you probably could have heard it like a drum from 3 miles away. I was sweating. I could barely type in my username because my hands were clammy. And when I logged on to YouTube and when I looked at that video, tears streamed down my face. I was choking on my own breath. But it wasn't because people were being mean. It's because people were telling me that I was beautiful.
Wow.
For the first time in my entire life, people saw me with my acne for who and what I was. And they said, oh my God, but your eyes are so gorgeous. Oh my God, I know you have this acne, but you're so strong. You're so brave. You know, a girl commented and she told me that I gave her hope because she had been told by doctors that she could not be cured, that her acne was going to last forever because she was in her 40s. And she was like, you give me hope that I can finally cover this up. And I was like, holy shit. Like I've spent the last 10 years feeling so alone, yet there's people just like me. And I'm sorry for getting emotional, but it became this new side of humanity to me. It opened up this community where finally I could be myself and people understood what I was going through. All my entire life, my mom, she never wore makeup. She had one pimple on her wedding day. She would tell me, oh, Cassie, they're just jealous of you because you're tall, or they're just saying mean things because secretly they think you're pretty. But my mom was trying to be nice and do good, but she didn't know what it felt like. And when she said those things, it just pushed me further and further away from her because I felt like she didn't understand. And she didn't. But finally, there were people online who were just like me. And that's what started my passion for YouTube. That's why I kept putting myself out there, because I had an obligation to these people, because I had a community with them, because I had friends who felt more real to me and were more real to me than any of the relationships that I had in my real day-to-day life.
Wow. It's so incredible because in 2010, you posted that video that now has close to 30 million views where you have a full face of makeup on and then you remove it and there you are facing the camera. Nobody's with you, but in that moment, you just bear it all and you are so incredibly vulnerable. And for those who haven't seen this video, I'll link to it in our show notes, but you have to watch it because there is a human being who you would never ever know that was underneath all of that makeup, who's sitting there and showing it off. And I can only imagine how terrified you are, but you have helped so many people. So after you logged back on and you saw that video had exploded and people had, a whole new appreciation for who you are and what your message was, what were your next steps?
For me, it wasn't even about those numbers. They were terrifying, but they hadn't gotten big, big, big yet. And for me, it was like this open diary. It was this dedication. It was, oh my God, you're dealing with acne? Me too. This is what I used to cover it up. This is what I'm studying in aesthetic school. Have you tried this product? Did it work for you? You told me that dairy, cutting it out helped your skin. Let me try getting rid of milk and stop eating ice cream. It just became this running communication, just the way you would make a regular phone call to your family members or to your friends. It was this video diary. It was this help network. It was my best friends, my support, and also my new learning channel and really my diary. So I just started posting regularly.
This might sound like a selfish question, but I've posted some YouTube videos before, and to be completely honest, there are some days where you turn the camera on, you look at yourself, and you think all of these terrible thoughts about yourself that...
Oh, every day.
Yeah. So how did you push through that? Because I'll try it and be like, today, Jen, you just are not looking good. Turn the camera off. So, you post so many videos, and in all of them, you're not always so polished. There's some videos where your hair isn't done and your makeup isn't on. So how do you tell yourself, you know what, I'm going to sit here no matter how I look and record this video today?
Girl, that happened to me yesterday. I was filming a video I basically got this facial it's for acne scarring and, for some inflammation and lymphatic drainage. And I did a facial where I got electricity shot into my face. And so I was filming this video and I just looked at the footage and I was like, oh, Cassandra, you look horrible. You sound horrible. This is nasty. That still happens to me to this day. But I'm going to go ahead and post it, just like I have felt with every single other video. And the reason why is because it's not about me. It's no longer about proving myself or proving a message. It's about the bigger impact. It's knowing that there's someone out there who needs a friend. It's knowing that there's someone out there who is confused and hurt and is seeking this information just like me. And when it becomes something bigger than yourself, all of those insecurities don't matter as much anymore. I've always said, I could die tomorrow, but all of my suffering would have been in vain if I didn't traumatize myself to put it out there, because I would have suffered in silence, knowing that there's so many other people who feel the same way. And whether it's your weight, whether it's your skin, whether it's mental health, your sexuality, or anything else that you've dealt with, we've all got demons. We've all got something that we're hiding so much and we feel so alone with. But the more I started to open up, the more I realized I am not alone. I can beat this. I can overcome this. And in that process, maybe I can help someone else. The second that you see someone else breaking down barriers, whether it's running a mile in under 3 minutes, or whether it's building their own business online, or passing a certain score on a test. The second you see somebody else do it, it kind of gives you the visceral hope that you could do it too. The second the first person stands on the moon, it's like, oh my God, it's possible. And when I realized that I was maybe that for somebody else, to go outside without makeup, to take initiative to learn about their skin, to try a vegan diet, holy crap, that for me was worth more than letting any of my insecurities get in the way.
For sure. And what advice would you have for those people who feel so incredibly alone? What should they do if they don't want to start a YouTube channel of their own? What kind of things can they also do to feel connection to other people who are experiencing something very similar to them?
Yeah. YouTube channel was definitely an interesting choice. I didn't know what it would be. And to be honest, it is a lot of work, and there is a lot of criticism that I didn't really think through, that I had to learn to deal with when it was thrown in my face. But for anyone who is hurting or feels that need for connection, my biggest thing is speak up. Whether that's in an anonymous chat room with an anonymous username, whether that's calling a suicide helpline, whether that's talking to a cousin or a family member or a friend, or sitting down next to a stranger at a juice bar and saying, hey, can I tell you a story?
Mm-hmm.
Can you hear me out for a minute? If you don't open up, you'll never know what it feels like to A, get that off your chest, and B, to have the opportunity to connect to somebody else who might be going through it with you. And the great thing about the internet is that you can search a hashtag on Instagram. If you're struggling with, eating healthy, hashtag eat healthy. If you're struggling with an eating disorder or something, or if you're struggling with self-harm, if you're struggling with your sexuality, or, with finances, you can literally search a hashtag. You can find a podcast like yours, Jen. You can go online and you can find these communities, both in person and digitally. And I think that the biggest thing is just take that first step. And if you don't like what happens, you can take that post down, or you don't have to talk about it. But if you don't try, you'll never know.
I agree. And I think there's something incredibly refreshing about telling a stranger your problems. I think you're, sitting next to somebody and just saying, listen to this. I mean, I've had some crazy, crazy things happen to me where I was certain I was the only person in the world to go through it. And then the more I found myself telling people, the easier it was. It became so easy to talk about. It felt like nothing. And two, almost everybody I told about my weird situation, they were like, oh, I know somebody else just like that. Or, oh, that happened to me, but I never told anybody. So people would be surprised how much every single person goes through. And sometimes you just have to be vulnerable and say it out loud.
It really is. And it's amazing how much shame we live with, and how we really are our own worst critics. There's a quote out there on the internet that says an artist's work is never completed. It's only abandoned. And that's a lot of, quite often, how I feel about my videos. It's like they're never perfect. I just abandon the idea and just post it the way it is. But it's also how I feel about my emotions. I'm never as confident as I could truly want to be. We can never have enough money or be perfect enough, right?
Yeah.
But once you let go of that idea that it exists, you learn to start loving the journey. If life was perfect and there's nothing more, that means you're dead. The fact that you're going through problems, that you're going through challenges, that you have to hike up mountains right now, that means you're doing the thing called life correctly. And the movies might not tell us that, but it's something that I've had to learn from experience. So now when shit hits the fan, I'm like, okay, this is going to suck, but let me extract the good out of this. I'm happy that it's happening because this means that I'm living.
It's so true. And the second you realize that your shit will often hit the fan, the better off you are, because then you won't be thinking, oh my God, why me? What's going to happen? You're like, okay, this is just another messed up situation that I have to get through.
And maybe you could help someone in the process.
Yes,
exactly.
Yes. I do have a couple of quick acne questions for you.
Oh, yes.
Because it's a topic I love. I went to get a facial the other day. Someone gifted it for me for my birthday. And I laid there and I said to the person doing the facial, I'm 30 years old. Shouldn't I not have acne anymore? And she laughed in my face and was like, no, sweetheart, you'll have acne for the rest of your life, but I struggle with acne scarring, the whole 9 yards. And I'm so self-conscious about it. This is really the first time I'm openly talking about this. So I'm really happy to do that. But one question I have for you is, what are some lies that people tell you about acne?
Well, Jen, first off, thank you for opening up. I know that your listeners care so much about you and who you are as a person. And the more you expose that to them and to me, like, it goes a long way. And it honestly makes me feel very excited to be able to speak with you, because I feel like you get it.
Oh,
which is
I get it.
Amazing. Yeah.
I get it. I'm picking a pimple right now. I totally get it.
I feel it. Oh my God, I feel that. Oh, the picking is so hard. So some of the biggest acne myths are, like you said, the idea that it will go away. I've had so many doctors and even my grandma who's like, oh, don't worry, honey, when you get older, it'll leave, your hormones will calm down. I mean, I've had videos and they've said, I am so frustrated because I'm supposed to grow out of this, but I still have it. And your videos tell me the science behind it. So I actually have hope to understand my products and my diet and my life and do something about it. Thank you. But seeing that from a 72-year-old, I'm like, oh my God, don't sit here and tell me that acne won't flare up just with age or that it'll go away. That's one of the biggest myths. The other biggest myth is that diet has nothing to do with it. For some people, diet might not be a huge factor, but the more and more I learn about medicine, I learn how intrinsically connected everything in our bodies are. Think about it. How did you get from being a little 10-pound baby or 8-pound baby up into this 150-pound plus human being? It's because you ate, you drank water, you slept, but you put things into your body. And those things that you put in literally shape who you are and who you have become. And because our bodies are so interconnected, nutrition plays a huge fact in how well they function. And I have seen personal correlations with my skin from my diet. Mine have been huge. For me, it was dairy and meat. I had no idea. And for so long, I ignored the fact that my diet could play any role. But for me, those were huge. And there's actually a huge movement of people now that after I started posting have tried cutting out some of those things and realized that it's been helping them as well. But so for some people, if you're not drinking enough water, if you're not staying hydrated, that can have an impact. If you're allergic to a food, if you're allergic to peanuts and you don't know it and you're eating peanuts, that's going to cause a response in your body that is an allergic histemic response, and your body will be constantly inflamed. And that could cause acne or other immunodeficiencies or issues such as eczema or redness on the skin, or even flare up things like multiple sclerosis or arthritis, which are inflammatory diseases. Even depression has links to inflammation. And when we realize how connected these different things are, it's like, whoa, we can't keep on going with this myth that diet has nothing to do with it. There might be some people who are outside of that, but we can't just ignore it. And doctors might say, and doctors have told me, oh, well, there's not sufficient evidence that proves it. Well, okay, just because the studies haven't been funded and haven't been done doesn't mean that they shouldn't be done in the future. And it doesn't mean that that doesn't work or not work.
Of course, and it's easier for them to just put people on birth control and say, let this fix your face. So I completely get that. I notice that dairy completely affects my skin. I will have one ice cream cone and I'll wake up the next morning with cystic acne.
Same.
You know, it's like, and it's like so obvious to me that it's like fun to test it out, you know, but it's also like painful to deal with. But you're so right. Food is medicine. Food is what can completely change so many incredible things. You have a lot of great videos that I'm going to link to in our show notes where you give people a couple of different triggers for acne and even suggestions for things they can do to fix it. You really do help people out with this topic. I saw a video yesterday where you showed an acne pillow, which to me was like the coolest invention in the world. But you have so many great acne tips and tricks. Do you have anything that you recently found out about that you want to share?
Yeah, well, speaking of the pillow, that's something that I think is really interesting. We spend 8 hours a night putting our faces on pillows. Now, this goes with both pillows and nighttime skincare products. If we're going to bed for 8 hours, that's a third of our day if we're sleeping for a whole 8 hours, right? But it's like, how can we not be treating or at least being mindful of our skin at that time? And something that I didn't know until recently is that, a lot of pillows are made with chemicals that are flame retardants. These are helpful because they stop your pillow from catching on fire. If your house is burning down, yeah, you want your pillow to not light on fire as quickly as it could. But at the same time, what's dangerous about that is that a lot of those chemicals are seen as neurotoxins and can be allergens. So number one, they can be hurting your health. And number two, they could actually be causing allergic reactions or symptoms in people. And when I switched to either, skin safe pillows like the Paluki, or when I went online and I bought just cotton that's not treated or bamboo that's organic, I started to notice differences. And also when you realize like your hair has oils, natural oils, but certain oils can break out acne prone skin. And if you're putting dimethicone hair products and conditioners and then you're sleeping with your hair plastered in between your pillow and your face, those can get on your skin. And so within the past 2 years, like the past year really, I've been researching how sleep plays a role in our acne in both a holistic hormonal way and the changes that happen while we go to sleep. Did you know your skin repairs more while you sleep than it does during the day?
Wow.
And then also the products and the pillowcases that you use. Use your most intensive skincare treatment, your retinaldehyde, your intense acne treatments right before you go to bed, so that way you're not sweating it off throughout the day. And really figuring out both the holistic and the medical sides of sleep and acne has been amazing for me.
Yeah, I was watching that video yesterday thinking, I probably wash my pillowcase not as often as I should. And yeah. I sleep on the same side of my face, and that is the side where I get the most acne, the most scarring. Oh. And you know what? Everything seems so obvious, but it's not until someone brings it up. Because no one tells you when you grow up or when you're in school anything about acne. Either you have it or you don't. And then you try to figure it out, but it's like you can't. And hearing you speak about the different triggers, it's so interesting because it's obvious. But then it's like, no, I never even thought my pillowcase could
even
do
my
this.
Laundry detergent.
Oh God,
I was using a laundry detergent that I know I have sensitive skin, but Dum Dum here didn't make the connection that your clothing and like jewelry can also cause sensitivity. And I accidentally switched from my drugstore cheapo laundry detergent to an organic one, and all of a sudden my acne started getting better on my body, especially when I would sweat in my workout clothes. And then I switched back to the cheapo brand because, hi, my name's Cassandra. I don't want to pay more than I have to for freaking laundry detergent. And when I switched back, my body acne came back in the shape of the tank tops that I was using on my back, on the strap on my shoulder. I was like, wait, why does it look like I'm wearing a tank top of acne? And then I was like, holy guacamole, maybe there's like my itchiness after I'm working out because of sweat. Maybe it's the sweat mixing with the laundry detergent. And I put the laundry detergent direct on my skin and it itched and it burned. I put the natural one on my skin. It didn't burn. Don't do that at home, by the way. That's like a bad science experiment. But when I switched back to the natural detergent, my body acne started to clear, and now I can work out and not be as concerned about these major breakouts that line, my tank top lines down my back. I'm like, oh my God.
I'm literally sitting here like hitting myself because I have body acne too, and I'm always wondering what it's from, and I'm thinking, obviously, Jen, it's probably from the cheap detergent you're using, and I stay in my workout clothes for like hours, which is such a no-no as well.
Me too,
but
yeah.
Just hearing you say it, I'm like, oh my God, that's brilliant. Like, buy organic laundry detergent. It's just, that's why you need to listen to an expert like yourself who's been through it all, who's seen it all, to get some of these tips that, there's simple changes, but they can completely change your skin and your life.
Yeah. Well, and it's like you said, it's one of those things where you don't know unless someone gives you the advice or you read the medical papers or you get exposed to that information. And even organic things can be an issue. You can go haywire with the organic lavender oil, but if your skin is sensitive to lavender, that could be causing even more problems. Like coconut oil, it's seen as this amazing thing. And don't get me wrong, oil is great for breaking down makeup. But coconut oil specifically, if you leave it on your skin, for certain individuals, it can create a film, which can actually clog pores. So all these natural bloggers who I follow are like, oh, coconut oil for everything. And I'm like, oh my God, yes, girl, preach. But then for me, sometimes it reacts with my skin and it can actually cause more issues.
Yep.
And I'm just like, wow, like even the natural stuff doesn't always work. And again, if you don't take the time to educate yourself or research, you won't know. And that's why I always say the cure to my acne was education and having a real supportive community who challenged my existing perceptions and who gave me a safe place to share what I was learning.
I love that. And that's so important. And you've used your YouTube channel to talk about a lot of things, really most of your life for the past 8 years. And recently you came out with another video that was so incredible to watch. You decided to once again sit in front of the camera and reveal another secret of yours, and you came out. So what was that process like?
It sucked like every other time.
Yep.
Like I said, I've had a history my whole life of hiding, whether it's hiding behind makeup or hiding in my room or hiding my sexuality. There's a lot of things that I just wasn't confident about. And sexuality was one that I honestly thought I could change. You know, I had my first girlfriend at 12 or 13, and I thought, oh, it's just a phase. It'll go away. You know, I had a boyfriend. I tried to date those guys. I put myself in those situations. I was like, it's just a phase. It's just a phase. Like, you know, do what Jesus wants. Do what your mama would be proud of. But it came to this point where, just like modeling with acne, I felt like I was kind of living this double life. And it was about 6 years ago that I realized, like, this is something that I cannot change. Like, I have memories of having crushes on teachers and babysitters back when I was 4 years old. And it wasn't sexual. It was just like, wow, Cassandra, this is really something that you can't shake. And it's also, you would never judge somebody else for who they love. Half of your friends are gay. Why do you judge yourself so harshly? And, you know, I've did some amazing therapy and some amazing self-growth over the past 5 years. A lot of my self-harm stemmed from issues with my sexuality. And as I started overcoming some of those self-harm issues and punishment issues, I was able to really come to terms with things that I can't change, but that I shouldn't have to. And so I started coming out to my friends and family about 5 or 6 years ago, which was cathartic, but it sucks as well. You know, because, you know, in my head, it's this issue of if it isn't broke, don't fix it. Why rock the boat? If I'm not dating someone who I'm going to marry, why should I have to tell my parents? Why should I have to bring this up to people and risk being hurt? And I know that somebody else's opinion of me shouldn't dictate my self-worth. But to be honest, that doesn't stop me from wanting their approval. And it's that fear of what will they think of me? But what will they think of me is a sentence that has a lot, it's like an iceberg. It has a lot more underneath it than you know. And anytime you think, what will they think of me, whether it's me and my sexuality and my acne, or whether it's you and your acne or something else that you're dealing with, or putting a podcast or a video out there, or somebody else's weight, what will they think of me has an underlying note of, I'm afraid that they will reject me for this.
Yep.
And when I came to terms with that, you know, that's so hard. You know that it shouldn't matter, but you don't want to risk losing that friendship. And especially with my viewers online, even after I had come out to my friends and family and been so embraced and so accepted, I was still like, the internet is this big, scary place. You know, this isn't anybody's business. It shouldn't matter to them. You know, so why rock the boat? But then I started realizing I was dancing around pronouns, you know. I would film videos and I wouldn't share my whole life. You know, I do vlogs. I take people throughout my days, showing them how my makeup holds up, what I'm using to cover my acne, what I'm eating. And I started being less authentic online in the sense that I started filtering everything. And my sexuality is nobody's business. But if I'm hiding myself and if I'm not being open and if it's actually causing me to disconnect to my friends and family because I feel guilty for holding in a secret, then yeah, that does become somebody else's business, at least in my book as a definition. So I decided, you know what? I don't want to have to dance around pronouns anymore. I don't want to have to constantly come up with excuses. Whenever anyone would like meet me, they'd be like, oh, you don't have a boyfriend? Like, oh my God, like, you're getting old. Like, what's going on? And now I can stand up for myself. And that honestly feels so good. And it's translated to many other things in my life. And again, not having that stress of having to hide my sexuality, not having that stress of saying, Cassandra, you're not good enough as who you are. Getting rid of that negative self-talk has let me be more stress-free, which has had an impact on my skin. And, who would have known that the stress from my sexuality was causing my acne as well?
Yeah, and it's something where I'm sure making that video, posting it was something, again, you wanted to hide from the internet for a while, and just because you didn't know what people were going to say. And one question from one of our listeners who sent me this before said, Cassandra, you are such an inspiration. You've walked me through so many hard things that have helped me out, but what was more difficult for you and your self-esteem, hiding your acne or hiding your sexuality?
So that's a loaded question as well. Hiding my acne was hard, but I wore it on my face. You could see it. Whereas hiding my sexuality, I've had even more practice at doing that than my acne. I mean, I remember drawing pictures of my best friend in second grade. Again, not sexual, but I would draw my best friend Jessica with really nice boobs just because I was that's what I find attractive. And I would be reprimanded. So literally since the age of 7 or 8, I had learned how to keep quiet, how to cover up. Because it just wasn't okay. And when it came to acne, that was on my face. That I could try to hide, but not very well. I would say that sexuality was harder, but because I had more practice and because acne gave me the practice of being vulnerable and open, it made coming out so much easier. Because acne taught me that if you feel alone, if you feel hurt, and if you are killing yourself, literally and figuratively, over something you can't change, that speaking up about it is going to be your first step to healing yourself and letting others heal with you. And I realized, holy guacamole, Cassandra, you've come out to your friends and family over the past 5 years, but this is your acne now. Your sexuality is still an issue. And if you feel alone, if you feel judged, just the way acne gave you an amazing community and helped you find self-confidence, that's the step that you have to take here. So I guess that inner rebel just kind of showed herself again. And I was like, you know what? I'm sick of hiding behind pronouns. I'm sick of not taking you through my days and my content. I'm sick of not being able to feel like I can tell you everything, to hold that guilt of hiding a secret. This is who I always have been. This is who I am. And I hope that doesn't change anything other than my self-confidence and me standing up for myself. And if you're dealing with something too, know that you are beautiful just the way you are. I preach that, and it's time for me to fully embrace and live that.
Wow, this is incredible. And you are such an incredible person. This is a story that hasn't even been a month out there that you've come out. And since then, I feel like you've just taken it by the wings and flown with it. You are working with Boy Meets Girl on a campaign around Pride, benefiting the Trevor Project. Did you want to talk a little bit about that?
I would love to. And again, I've had practice coming out for 5 years, so I guess that did really help. And like I said, acne prepared me for this. If it weren't for acne, I wouldn't know how to stand up for myself and push through the negativity and the hate. Acne gave me really tough skin, both with products and with online bullies.
Yeah, for sure.
Boy Meets Girl was actually one of the first clothing designers who I walked the runway with acne for. I walked the runway with a full face of acne, and the designer, Stacey Eagle, embraced me wholeheartedly. And when she found out more about my story and about bullying and stuff like that, she wanted to do a giveaway and encourage other people to share the moments online that they had stood up against bullying. And she actually gave sweatshirts and her designer clothing away to people who were standing up and making a difference. And again, it's that idea that if we see somebody else stand up and do something good, if we see somebody else be unapologetically themselves, it, in a strange psychological way, gives us permission to stand up or to be ourselves as well. And Stacy has supported me since day one. And after coming out, we've been having this discussion. She's always been a huge supporter of the LGBT community. And she actually, her line is called Boy Meets Girl, but she has Girl Meets Girl and Boy Meets Boy merchandise as well. So June is Pride Awareness Month. There's pride parades all over the world just celebrating and embracing uniquity and love, regardless of what that means to you. And actually tomorrow and today, we're coming out with a Live Out Proud giveaway. And it's that idea of share your story of what love means to you. Share a story or a moment of something that happened in your life. It gives you the opportunity to open up and be vulnerable, but it could also help somebody else who is struggling with love or a relationship, whether you're gay, straight, bisexual, or ice cream is your boyfriend, like whatever that is. Share what love means to you, help inspire the world, and at the same time make a difference. And we are giving away Stacy's designer clothing to a couple of the winners who are going to be sharing their stories. And for anybody who does want to purchase shirts, she's giving me the biggest gift of donating in my behalf to the Trevor Project. And the Trevor Project, it's tragedy that really turned into a godsend and beauty. Trevor was a boy who was gay, and he was bullied, and he ended up committing suicide. And because of his struggle and because of his experience, there is now a project with his name on it that helps LGBT youth, anyone who's struggling with suicide, anyone who is being hurt in their family or their friendship circles because of their sexuality. They provide counseling, they provide support, and provide resources to truly let love live as bright and as full as it can be in any capacity. And so if you want to support, whether it's support your pride or just your alliance, they're going to be giving back 10% of all proceeds, which is just, God, it's the best gift that anyone could give you, knowing that you could help somebody else and knowing that Stacy is allowing me to be a part of that campaign with her. I'm just like, God, what more could you want?
That's amazing. And it's such a wonderful organization. And we'll link to it again in the show notes so that people can hear more about it. I have one final question for you. Are you ready?
Yes. Am I nervous? Should I be?
No, it'll be fun. Fill in the blank. You're not getting any younger, so...
You're not getting any younger, so get naked and swim in the ocean and be free.
I love that, Cassandra. You are incredible. Your story brings me to tears, and I can't wait for everyone to listen to this episode. Where can listeners find you after it's over?
Jen, thank you so much for your love and support and for the space that you give your listeners and me and everyone else in this community to be themselves and to grow and to learn, because we're not getting any younger, so we might as well grow up smart, right?
Yes, amen to that.
They can probably find me on your website along with a lot of other helpful links across all social media. It's at Cassandra Bankson, Cassandra, Bankson, Bankson. And if anybody out there wants to come up and say hi on Instagram or YouTube, be sure to say that Jen sent you so that I can give you special attention.
I love it. Thank you so much for being on the show today. I can't wait to watch more of your videos because you're inspiring me every day. Thank you so much. Hey you! Thank you for listening to the You're Not Getting Any Younger podcast. There are hundreds of thousands of pods out there, so thank you for listening to this one. You can find the show notes for this week's episode up on our website, anyyounger.com. Subscribe, rate, and review the You're Not Getting Any Younger podcast on iTunes so that other ears around the world can listen too. Oh, and join our secret You're Not Getting Any Younger Facebook group, where over 1,000 people are talking about how to disrupt their lives, for a good reason, to make it count. Until next week, all my love, Jen Glantz.